In terms of the figure, one model recurs a lot, and that's your wife, Betty Jean Thiebaud. And I'm curious, aside from serving as a model, what role has Betty Jean played in your work?
Oh, everything. And especially my toughest critic. It's hard to get by Betty Jean with anything that has a mistake in it. And everything has a mistake in it. But I owe Betty Jean great tribute and my love.
Do you, when you start a work, do you usually start with a drawing or drawings? Is that, can you sort of talk about how drawing plays into your finished paintings?
Well, I think drawing for me is one of the most important things of all. It's the way in which your vocabulary of awareness is built. It's the one in which your forms are tested. It's the means by which you prove empathy. You draw the figure in order to understand things like pressure, grace, awkwardness, a feeling of, again, empathy. So that if you, particularly figure drawing, if you don't go through that, and it doesn't matter what way you finally decide you're going to paint, whether it's, I mean, Reinhardt was an excellent figure drawer. De Kooning's an extraordinary draftsman. So that those premises are the means by which drawing, I'm talking about, is the basis, I think, of the major problem setting of all. And you can never do enough of it. You can never do it well enough. So when you, for instance, say, how do you begin with a drawing? When you take your brush, dip it in paint, then the next thing you do is draw. And you may draw with just a splash, or you may draw very precisely. But drawing out and rendering and getting your sense of space, distances, and so on, for me, that all depends on drawing. You know, the wonderful thing about drawing is that everybody should do it, and we should have it in the school system so that we understand. It's such a pleasure, and apart from that, it's such a whole other way of knowing about things, knowing about nuance, knowing about precision, knowing about pleasure, knowing about sweeping sense of openness, or the crab-like quality of tension. And that aspect, those aspects really depend on your capacity to draw well and continually and forever. I think we lately have gotten into a position of not recognizing that enough. And as a result, I think we're seeing essentially works which are not premised somehow on the most primal things which painting depends upon. this may be a little too fancy a term, but if you've drawn, you certainly know how hard it is, and at the same time you know what pleasure it is to do it well, or to do it even pretty well, or just to make a funny little scribble. I mean, don't you draw when you're on the telephone? No, I'm so still entranced with, and then making another one, and then connecting the line. That's joyous. I've got space on a flat sheet of paper. How did that happen? You know? Enough of that.
Like drawing, you have done a lot of printmaking. And I'm curious if the printmaking has in some way influenced your paintings, or if they sort of function independently.
No, they do. I think it's reciprocal. One tattletales on the other reveals things. Print making is a process which is sequential more than painting needs to be, because you have these stops of evolutionary positions. So it's a great teaching mechanism as well, I think. It also, in each case, is its unique character, so that it's like using the notion of transposition in music. You can take a form or a subject matter that you have done, worked on, let's say a bubblegum machine, which is a big, bright, colorful painting, and then say, well, I'm going to do it this big in black and white, and to see what you have to do to make something somewhat as interesting as that one in full color. And that's an interesting change and an interesting education about many things. For instance, the difference between size and scale, or color and black and white. You learn it's true what Matisse says, that you can tell a good colorist by how they work in black and white, because the value structure is so needed and so primal to that.
Do you often paint outdoors?
Yes, I have a French easel, and I haven't done it enough lately, and yearn to go out. But it's a great thing to do, and
do you typically make studies that then become larger works, or do you try to work big when you're outside? I know that's difficult.
Sometimes both things can be useful. Sometimes you try to complete a kind of more direct, sort of premier coup, first strike kind of approach. The other is, as you mentioned, to develop sort of research sketches that you can then take into the studio and amplify or change or use in that way.
And I have one more question before showing the images. If you did not decide to become an artist, what do you think would have been your career path? You said ranching. Would that be it?
I sometimes say tennis player. But then if you get into that professional thing, I wouldn't like that. Maybe tennis bum. I don't know. I like to do lots of things. It's hard to think of another. Maybe cartoonist. Some critics already say that's what I am anyway. And that's a big compliment to me.